OK, so Rishi has announced this support yesterday. What was your sort of immediate reaction to it?
Well, better late than never. I think politically it's always difficult when a government does a U-turn. Labour and the Lib Dems have been calling for this windfall tax for 5 months now. Obviously, it's not a windfall tax. It's a temporary targeted energy profits levy. I don't know how many people it took to come up with that, Monica, but I think we'll all call it a windfall tax. And it's not that temporary either because it doesn't expire until 2025. But I think, it would be churlish not to say this is a good thing. We know the energy companies have been making an absolute fortune, and we know that the cost of energy is one of the biggest single contributing factors to the pressure on households. It's not perfect, Nana. None of these measures are going to be perfect. There are arguments that, the rich will get as much, if not more, than poor people. If you've got 2 or 3 homes, you'll get 2 or 3 times the benefit of the money that's being made available. And there are questions about, raising benefits, for instance. Instead of getting rid of the £20 uplift on universal credit, maybe that would have been sensible to keep that going as we were beginning to see the impact of the Ukraine war and the rising cost of energy. And I think, there are other things, as you mentioned in the introduction. Is it enough? Is he going to have to dip into the pockets again? And, there are pockets, not his pockets, to come up with more because, we are just about to come into June. We're only 4 months away from the beginning of meteorological autumn, at which point we know that energy prices will go up. There's no sign of an end to the dreadful war in Ukraine. That's having an impact on wheat, oil and other basic food supplies. And, I think we're heading into precarious times. Not all of it, of course, can be fixed by this Chancellor or any other Chancellor because they are global events that you can't control by a windfall tax. So we have to watch, and we also have to see what the long-term costs will be because, the windfall tax, the money it raises, isn't going to cover the money that's going out. So we'll all have to, somehow or other, there'll be cuts somewhere along the line to fund it.
But they seem to be chucking a lot of money around, though, and a lot of it, obviously, they said that there's about, I think it was 12% of some of the money will be going to fraud. Normally the numbers are somewhere between 2 to 3%. All this chucking money around in this manner is quite concerning in a sense. Are we not looking at the fraud aspect? Instead of throwing so much money around, could they have not have looked to recoup money from fraudulent things and also look to cut things like waste in the NHS and those sort of things? Otherwise, we're going to keep a high percentage of waste.
Yes, and you and I have discussed this before. I mean, the fraud and the money that was wasted during COVID when money was being thrown around like water, there's been very little done to recoup any of that money, billions and billions of pounds. We know £37 billion was wasted, that's my view, on track and trace because track and trace didn't work. And we know there were sort of dodgy PPE contracts. We've had a government minister resign over that, and nothing's been done to follow that up. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think, there are lots of things. We have seen this coming, all of us, including Rishi Sunak, and he's got access to more information than you and I have got. There are lots of things that could be done and should have been done years ago, like all new build properties should have been made better insulated, not just the basics, properly insulated, solar panels fitted, so that the retrofitting becomes less of an issue. But we're still chucking up houses with the basic minimum. We're not looking at renewables. We're not looking at you were mentioning earlier, or Polly was mentioning in the news, the cost of recharging an electric vehicle, for instance, has gone up considerably. So everywhere you look, we're all facing a hit on some of our household incomes. And, it's not always down to the government to fix all these problems. But as we get into the summer holidays, are we going to see the government embarrassingly being pushed and pushed and pushed by people like Marcus Rashford over free school meals? And don't forget, Nana, that many, many people who are going to be hit so hard are working people. They're not people on benefits. They're not eligible for benefits because they fall through that net. So they're people, teaching assistants, nurses, cleaners, security guards, carers, lots of people doing the jobs that we all stood on the doorstep if we did, and clapped for, who kept the country going. And they're the people who are going to be hit the hardest by this. And if you haven't got any wiggle room, that's really frightening for many, many people.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.